Welcome back, guys. I'm Zell, and we're doing another Drinking and Thinking with Zell. So you've got 9 seconds when the intro starts to get your drink of choice, and I'll be right back with you. Alright guys, today we're talking about heat treat and how heat treat affects you. So the first thing we need to understand is what happens with the steel. Whenever it comes into the factory or it comes into the shop, or it's like some I've got laying around upstairs, it is at an HRC of about 30 or so. And it's that low so that I can machine it, I can grill it, I can grind it, whatever needs to be done to get that blade ready. And then once I've got that blade ready, we got to harden it. And that's where the magic comes in. And we're going to do go through kind of a basic heat treat for D2 steel, since D2's kind of become a favorite for everybody over the past few months, with Ontario picking it up and putting it in rats, and SE picking it up and putting it in the Zancudo and the Avispa. So to heat treat D2, we take our low HRC steel and we put it in the oven, and we heat that oven up to right around 1400 degrees or so, and we do what's called equalizing. And equalizing is just making sure that the steel is that temperature all the way through the steel. And there's charts for that to tell you how long to leave it in there at that temperature. And then once that's done, we run it up to just above 1800 degrees, and we do the same thing. And once it's had its time in the oven, we pull it out and we quench it. And D2 is an air quench steel, so you quench it with air, pressurized air, and various other things. There's several different ways to do it. And then we have a steel at 64 HRC. That is really hard, and it's brittle at this point. If you took that blade and dropped it on the floor, or even on a semi-hard floor, it'd probably shatter like glass. Just everywhere. You ever seen those videos where people take golf balls and put them in liquid nitrogen and then drop them, do the slow-mo cameras on them? Well, that's what you'd be looking at. So we've got to do something else to it to bring that HRC down a little bit, and do some other things in the steel. I'm not going to get into the technical bits. We're going to leave that for Walter Sorrells. I'll link a video down in the description and up under that eye that Walter did on this, called The Hardest Steel in the World. But anyhow, we need to take this 64 HRC D2, this blade we just finished, and we need to get it down to an optimal HRC. And that optimal HRC should give us the best wear resistance and the best edge retention that that steel can do. So if we're doing a knife blade, we're going to temper it for a specific amount of time. It's somewhere around 900 degrees. I've read several things, 900, 950, but should get us down somewhere between 60 and 61. And whenever we take it out of the tempering oven, and then we have a piece of steel at the proper HRC to give us everything we want in that piece of steel. And you would think that this would be simple, right? Crucible and the other companies that make steel, Bowler and whatnot, Sandvik, they all have heat treat recipes for their steels. So it should be a no-brainer. We follow the recipe, we get what we want. And it is. The problem, or the good part, or I'm not sure how to classify this, is the companies that are doing this stuff, they don't always follow the optimal heat treat. Whenever I was looking through D2, I found D2 blades on Knife Center anywhere from 57 HRC up to 62 HRC. Optimal for D2 is somewhere around 60. So that blade at 57 is pretty soft for D2, pretty soft for any blade steel whenever we're talking about EDC blades. And 62 for D2 may be a little hard, may make it a little chippy. So therein lies the problem, and that's not the only problem. The other problem was I looked at about 50 different freaking knives, and there were only about 5 or 6 of them that actually showed an HRC number. So, lack of information there. So, what is going on there? Is it the manufacturer trying to cut corners or whatever? It may be. In some cases, if you don't have to run as much heat, think about how much money they may be saving in their tempering ovens if they can run the heat down 100 degrees. You don't really think about that whenever you're cooking a turkey, but whenever you're cooking 1,000 knife blades, it might be a big deal. In fact, it would be a big deal. So if you do it at 100 degrees less and you get HRC of 57 instead of 60, well, that's still a respectable HRC for a knife blade, especially an inexpensive knife blade. So maybe that's some of it, and some of it's probably marketing as well. You guys have heard me fuss about the Delica a lot, probably more than it deserves. But the Delica's VG10 is pretty soft. And it's my opinion, and I don't have any inside information here, so it's just my opinion that the Delica's VG10 is set at what I'm going to guess is around 57 or 58 HRC, maybe a little less, but I don't think it's any more. And I think it's set there for marketing reasons and for kind of protection reasons for Spyderco. It's the entry level into real Spyderco, and they probably sell hundreds of thousands of these things a year. So if they had them at a higher HRC, there are some things that happen. One, VG10 starts to get a little chippy. Secondly, it's harder to sharpen. I have this Boker Urban Trapper. This VG10 is at a higher HRC, and it's harder to sharpen than the Spyderco. So I think what Spyderco is doing here is they're expecting this knife to sell in large numbers to average purchaser. Not knife guys, just the average person that wants a knife to do whatever they're going to do. And VG10 fits that bill. It holds a working edge for a very respectable amount of time, and that's what the average person's looking for. The average person is not looking for something that looks like this. They're just looking for something to cut with. And I really think that that is the reason Spyderco has this VG10 kind of soft. But there's also a problem there. Spyderco doesn't give us any information, and they're not alone. I'm not picking on Spyderco there. There's not much information out there from many of the different manufacturers on what the basics, the HRC number. They leave that out. And why? Why leave the HRC number out whenever they could give us, that's just one piece of information they could give us. But if we know that the D2 is at 60 or 61 in the case of the Browse blade, we can go to the charts for Crucible, or Speedy Metals has charts that will tell us all kinds of great information. Wear resistance, impact resistance, all kinds of stuff about that steel at that HRC number. So if we want to, we can go find out all kinds of good stuff just by having that HRC number and knowing what type of steel it is. And that's what I want to pose to you guys today. Should these companies be giving us more information? Should they be telling us something about their heat treat? Should they be telling us the HRC on every knife? Kershaw, for instance, most of the stuff they put out on their website, you can see the HRC number. Now, most of it's 8CR13 MOV. Some of it's Sandvik, though, and some of it's even D2. And most of them will show us an HRC number. So if we felt like going back and getting the information on this steel, we can do that. But a lot of other manufacturers, Spyderco's bad about it, and many others, don't give us that information. Should they? Or do you not care? Are you just happy to know that you have an S35VN knife and that's all that matters? I want more information because I have seen many of these steels in great form and working great. And I have seen the same steel from another manufacturer, and it's not so great. So, anyhow, that's the questions I posed today for our drinking and thinking discussion. Should the manufacturers be giving us more information about the heat treat? Should they be being sure that we've got at least that HRC information? And if they've got something special, like, Jason Browse does, he's got some kind of special sauce he does with D2, because his D2 is just pretty darn good. Or Buck, for instance, with their Paul Boss heat treat. I don't know what they do over there, but anything that comes out of Buck, from the 420HC to the S30V and the 154CM, all of those steels that come out of Buck and the Paul Boss heat treat are generally an order of magnitude better than what's coming out of any other manufacturer. But should they be letting us in on some of this stuff? It frustrates me. Does it frustrate you? Or are you going to buy that knife for aesthetic reasons, because of what it looks like, because it's a mean looking blade like one of these Browse blades, or whatever, or it's got a really cool look like this little Boker Urban Trapper, or maybe just for use case? I know several people that have Delicas, and they've got VG10 Delicas. They may have 2 or 3 of them because they want to be able to sharpen them, and they're scared of ZDP 189, and they don't want British Racing Green. But they want it because they want that Delica shape. They want that handle. So I guess what I'm asking is the steel and having the right information about that steel important to you? Or is it more important to you to have that look, or those ergonomics, or whatever? For me, I think I want all of it. I want the whole big ball of wax, and I want honest information about the steel. So let me know your opinions and thoughts and everything down in the comments. This is a discussion video, so please share. And one thing I want to show you before we get out of here is I finally got the proper belts for my grinder, and we have this knife ready to go, as well as the big belly. If you watched yesterday's video, the big belly drawing is open, and you need to get over to Todd Knife and Tool and subscribe, and you need to subscribe here, and you need to get over there and watch that video and follow the rules there to get entered to be in the drawing for that big belly knife. And I've got to make a sheath for this one yet, but we'll be doing the drawing for this one probably early January. Maybe sooner, I don't know. It kind of depends on how things work out for me and Todd Knife and Tool. But anyhow, guys, I really appreciate you stopping by and talking knives and heat treat and ovens and all that kind of stuff with me for a few minutes. And you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.